Good evening everybody and welcome to the GPVWC 2017 Supercup season opener. It's been a fantastic build-up to what promises to be a spectacular season ahead of us, and we have got some absolutely cracking racing ahead of us here for the 2017 opener at the Albert Park circuit in Melbourne, Australia. Jake Sanson here, providing all of the coverage and all of the action for the night, with two magnificent races ahead of us, a 33-lap feature race on the horizon, and then of course we have our sprint race just after that as well. That's your grid after qualifying. They're just about to go and do their warm-up session. Tobias Poletzik grabbing the pole by just 0.053 of a second ahead of Dennis Jordan in the end. Jeffrey Fournier, Antonio Milanovic, Borja Milan and Dino Paolini rounding out the top six as things currently stand. So we are getting ourselves ready for the action. As you can see, we've just gone to a reset for the warm-up. So that gives us 5 minutes or so to really build up to the first part of the 2017 season. We will get into the action as quickly as we possibly can. So let's talk you through a little bit of the drivers competing in the season. Things have obviously changed a little bit. The Proline team have not continued, nor have Street Fighter Racing, because they have been promoted into the Super League. We have lost the likes of Enterprise GP, Fox Racing, Ghost Sport International and Ice Cold Racing. None of those teams have continued into the 2017 season, so we have some new faces. The likes of Cosmo Autosport, Deltec Racing Team, Epic Racing, Hinz Motorsport and Zederic Racing. And interestingly, we're also going to be seeing the return after a 6-year leave of absence for the Welsh Drag Racing team. They are returning as well. So a quick run through of the runners and riders as we go through the proceedings. Do our best to run through as the drivers leave the pit lane and make their way out onto the circuit. Andres Pestovs and Ben Willis are going to be the drivers for the Cosmo Autosport team this season, and they will do the best they can to move their way further forward. Drivers, as you can see from the warm-up, we'll just try and get a camera fix on a couple of the other drivers as they make their way out onto the circuit. A few drivers are not actually leaving the pits yet, hence why the cameras are not actually as spot on as they should be. We're doing our best in terms of coverage tonight. It's not going to be as slick as it usually is, unfortunately, because there's a fat bloke in charge of the feed tonight. Goodness knows what his name is. Cosmo Autosport, though, have their two drivers, Andrei Pestov and Ben Willis, on the driving strength, with the Deltec Racing team from South Africa represented by Stefan Rualt and James Johnson. The Drag Racing team's return has been heralded by the Croatian Antonio Milanovic and the Argentine Matthias Canapino. Epic Racing, the boys based in Banbury, have Jeffrey Fournier, the Frenchman, alongside the Englishman Rob Mason. Over at Evolution Motorsports of Kirchhain in Germany, it's Tobias Poletzik and Dennis Jordan, the teammates who have filled the front row of this first race of the season. Hinz Motorsport from Melbourne in Australia have the Englishman Jordan Weeks and the Indian Sandip Choda on their driving strength for this first round. Multiforce GP, based over in Sigewi, they have the German Alex Siebel and the Spaniard Carlos Fernandez. Dino Paolini of Germany and Wubke Hoekstra of the Netherlands line up for Zurich Racing. And their cousins over at Racing Team Schroeton, they've lined up two Spaniards for this year's championship season, Eduard and Gerard Batala, keeping it in the family. The American team from West Palm Beach in Florida have Satellite Racing with their drivers Matt Strand and TJ Halsema. And the English boys, Mark Fuller and Dominic Foster, racing for their homegrown ST Racing team, based all the way in Chandler's Ford. The Maltese TJ Racing squad have Edgar Ruiz and Borja Milan, the two Spaniards. And then another Maltese driver, Jason Muscat, leads the charge alongside the Netherlands driver Duve Tapper for the Portishead-based racing team Zederic Racing. So as you can see, 2 minutes left of our warm-up session. Just to give you a bit of a rundown, these guys are going to be blasting off for a 33-lap dash in the first race of the new season. And then there'll be a 19-lap sprint following that. So last year's champion, of course, is no longer with us in this championship. Lars Brugman, the Dutchman, having cantered to the championship alongside the likes of Sven de Vries and the Estonian Bristo Capet in there for third position. The leading seed in this year's championship is actually the German Dino Paolini, who used consistency to put himself right up the order. But Dino Paolini is going to want a very strong campaign in front of him. Let's see how many of the leading drivers have actually gone out for this session. Not too many of them have. Just doing our best to find a few faces in this session. That is back to the action on the circuit. Just the last minute or so as the drivers dial in their final setup changes. So the last few seconds of the session ticking away as we're not going to see any particularly quick lap times in this one. It isn't going to tell us a lot, but what we are going to get to see is drivers practicing starts and getting a general feel for the circuit. It is a cracking venue, this place. It always has been, and we love coming here for the season opener of the championship. It's a great way to start the year. 33 laps for the first race, 19 for the second. In that first race, they have to make a mandatory pit stop and then change compound of tyres, of course. There's a couple more changes of setup going on by the look of things. A few more drivers preparing their race strategies for the race coming up ahead. That is Foster just coming through and getting some running in on his car. Now, who is that out on the circuit? That is one of the... That's one of the Dutch runners. That's Foster just going through. Oh, that is Batala. He's just come through. So we'll just get the guys out on the circuit then for the first race of the 2017 championship. We'll follow the action as much as we can. You can follow the battles on the circuit as they happen, of course, on RaceView. And all of the action on the track as it happens. We'll do our best to keep up to date with what's going on the track as best as we can. Apologies in advance. It might not be the slickest broadcast you'll ever see in history, but we will do the best we can. So, who is going to get the opening round of the championship sealed up? I have a feeling it's going to be between Polutzik and Jordan. Unless, of course, something particularly dramatic happens to either of them in the first race. We did have some interesting battles in the Formula Challenge races yesterday. So how are we going to get this next race of the championship underway? We'll just have to find out. And once we get underway, we'll have a little bit more knowledge as to how the season will play out. This first round of the championship usually brings up a few surprises. And some of the drivers who will hit form later in the season have a bit of a reputation to struggle in the first race of the season. It's an opportunity for a lot of drivers to dust off the cobwebs and potentially for some drivers that perhaps would not necessarily have expected to finish in a high position. They are likely to do so in these circumstances, but it's an absolutely cracking way to start the season. The winner of the last round of the championship, of course, was the Brazilian Grand Prix weekend. It was Lars Brugman who took the victory for Proline ahead of Wopke Hoekstra and Dennis Jordan. So keep an eye on Hoekstra and Jordan. They ended strong last year. They'll want to start strong for the new race of the championship season. And as we get ourselves underway for the first of the season's races, we should have a bit more of an understanding as to how the season is going to play out. So the drivers preparing themselves for action. The last couple of preparations for the race ticking away as we prepare for action, and it's going to be 33 laps of the Australian Grand Prix circuit, as we said. Now, who will start on the softer compounds and who will start on the hard compounds? That is going to be the key factor from this race. So we will just see how things play out in the first race of the 2017 season. The drivers all getting themselves ready for the action as they form up now on the starting grid. We will get ready for the action. They'll go around, of course, for their rolling lap, and then when they come back again, we will be ready for race action. There are the two cars for Polutzik and Jordan that will line up on the front row of the grid as they prepare for action. And that is the team, for my money, that is already going to have a bit of a strong advantage going into this first Supercup race of the season. I'd quite like to see if the Evolution Motorsports boys have what it takes to bring this race to the forefront. Now the drivers just working their way onto the starting grid. Polutzik, Jordan, Fournier, Rolanovic, Milan, Paolini, Muscat, Ruiz, Tapper and Batalla. That is the order for the top 10 starting positions. It's Edouard Batalla who will round out the top 10, by the way, as well. So as the cars get themselves lined up for the race start, there they go on their green flag lap. So let's get ourselves to the front of this starting grid and talk you through one by one the drivers in this first race of the season. Tobias Polacek will start the season from the front of the grid for the Evolution Motorsports team. Then it will be Dennis Jordan, his teammate, lining up alongside him. Jeffrey Fournier is next in the lineup along with Antonio Rolanovic. He will share the second row of the grid with him. Borja Milan is next ahead of Dino Paolini. Jason Muscat will be 7th on the starting grid, just in front of Edgar Ruiz, the Spaniard. Then we have the Dutchman Duve Tapper. He lines up 9th on the starting grid, in front of Edward Batalla. Then it is another Dutchman, Stefan Rualt, who will run in front of the Argentine racer Matthias Canapino. James Johnson runs in 13th position on the grid, in front of Rob Mason. Then it is going to be Dominic Foster, who lines up next in proceedings, just in front of another one of the competitors, that is Strand, who runs there in 16th position. Then it is Jordan Weeks, who runs in front of Carlos Fernandez. The second of the Batallas lines up in 19th position in front of the Latvian Andrei Pestov. Next up in the lineup it is Moyano, just there in front of Willis. And then right towards the back we have Fuller in front of TJ Halsema. And Vodka Hoekstra is going to be the 25th and last man in. It looks like we've got one or two drivers from the back of the grid who are not going to line up. So Polacek and Jordan are going to run at the front of the grid. Apologies for lag. Unfortunately, we are a little bit down on our broadcast team this evening. So we'll just have to do the very best we can with what we have to work with, unfortunately. We'll get things ready, hopefully, for tomorrow night, where things will be a little bit more at ease. So the cars bring their way back to the starting grid once again. And as we get ourselves ready for action, it'll be an interesting run to that first corner. Polacek, Jordan, Fournier, Rolanovic, Milan, Paolini, Muscat, Ruiz, Tapper and Batalla. And as the cars now synchronise in position, they're going to have to be really careful, the Evolution Motorsports boys, from the front end of the grid. They're going to need to be incredibly careful how they pitch this to the first corner, because actually there could be some fireworks if they get this wrong. And watch out for Fournier. He can be a fast starter. So too Rolanovic and Milan. Here we go. And it's away. Polacek, Jordan. And it looks like a terrible start for Fournier. He's not going to get the start he wanted. So he's going to struggle on the way through to the first corner. So Polacek and Jordan have got through A-OK on this first lap. It looks as though they're going to be all right for the moment. They all work their way through in fine style. So Polacek leading, Jordan is second. And he's going to have to hold off for the moment, Fournier, and then it is Rolanovic. So they have remained in position for the early stages. Looks like there's no major dramas, although James Johnson appears to have fallen quite a way down the field. I wonder if he has dropped back. We'll double check as the race has got underway. And I think everybody's all right, no major catastrophes. So it looks to me as though we've got Polacek from Jordan, Fournier, Rolanovic, Milan, Muscat, and then Edgar Ruiz from Tapper, Paolini and Batalla. Here's Rolanovic, and he's got some pressure already from Borja Milan. Now what can Borja do on the first lap? Already Fournier is having a look at Jordan. But Borja Milan is having a look at the Croatian, Antonio Rolanovic. Trying to work their way through on this first lap. It's not going to be easy, but they are going to give it the best shot that they've got. Running a little bit wide there, doing the best they can. Got to be very careful on this first lap. It's so easy to drop the ball. But Fournier has dropped Rolanovic, and now he's closing up on Dennis Jordan. So maybe we're going to see a little bit of a strong run here from Jordan as he holds off. Look, he's holding off Jeffrey Fournier. He does not want to let him get a chance to come through at any moment at all in this race. Now, interestingly, there is only one driver who has gone in a different way in terms of strategy to the others out there, and that is Halsema. So, Halsema, who is currently down in, what position do I make that in? He is now down in 20th position, but everybody else is on blues and he's on greens, so he has obviously gone for a very different choice of tyre to everybody else. Dennis Jordan is already a cork in the bottle. Look at this. Fournier is getting held up, and this is allowing Tobias Polocek to get ahead. Here comes Fournier, going to dive for the inside line. He's not going to let Dennis Jordan get away with this for too long. They run side by side. There's not much to choose between them. Rolanovic is in there as well. Borja Milan just swarming around trying to make a move. And I think Rolanovic is going to get the place on Fournier. Yes, he manages to get past where Jeffrey Fournier could not. So Jordan holds on to second for the moment. And this has brought Borja Milan and Jason Muscat right into the battle. So there is Borja Milan having another go at the back of Jeffrey Fournier. Fournier is not able to get close enough to the back of Antonio Rolanovic. Apologies again for the lag. We're doing our best on this one. But Polocek is your leader, and he leads Dennis Jordan by over 3.5 seconds. Look at that gap already developing. Polocek is disappearing out into the distance. There he is at the first couple of corners. The lag is ferocious, unfortunately, but fortunately his driving is not. Tobias Polocek, the German, doing a cracking job out in the lead of this race. Then we've got Jordan, Rolanovic, Fournier, Milan and Muscat all in the battle together. And it looks to me as though Muscat is actually falling away a little bit off the back of Borja Milan. As they sweep through, there is still going to be a lot of opposition in this race for that second position, and the pit stops are really going to make an interesting part of this race. Now here's Edgar Ruiz as he runs in front of Duve Tapper. Dino Paolini is just in behind this pair. Edouard Batalla is there in 10th position as well. So we watched the battle between Ruiz and Tapper for a couple of corners. Now Duve Tapper, of course, finished last season on a high. He'll want to do a cracking job in this first weekend. So what can he do from 8th position? He's already losing ground to our race leader. 7.4 seconds back. That shows you how much time Dennis Jordan is actually costing the pack in front. Although he has managed to pull out half a second in front of Rolanovic and Fournier. As we mentioned, looking at tyre compounds, only TJ Halsema has gone on a different strategy to everybody else. So he's the odd one out here, having gone for a different compound to the rest of the field. I think everybody opting to play safe in this first race of the season. And we've already got a retirement, unfortunately, and that is Wopke Hoekstra. So not sure what happened there to the podium finisher from last time out, but we have lost Wopke Hoekstra. Now back to the battle for second position. Jordan, Rolanovic, Fournier, Milan and Muscat. Now Muscat is falling back a little bit now into the clutches of Edgar Ruiz and Duve Tapper. We've got a yellow flag somewhere, not sure what happened. But as we scroll back, we're looking now at Stefan Rualt as he chases down Edouard Batalla. And behind this, you can just make out Matthias Canapino, the Argentine driver in the second of the Drake Racing cars from Huavan in Wales. And that is Paolini defending again from Duve Tapper, or has he gone through? I think Paolini versus Duve Tapper causing a bit of a spicy one. Looks to me as though Tapper has held onto his advantage there. Tapper in front of Paolini, Batalla and Rualt. Rualt is having another think about it. Further back, and we've got another battle as well for 13th and 14th. That's Rob Mason and Carlos Fernandez. Fernandez pushing very hard on the back of Mason in his attempts to get through. And this is the problem in the early stages of the race. You can't afford to lose too much time. Otherwise, you just compromise yourself for the remainder of the race. And this is where Mason and Fernandez need to really get on with this and push themselves a lot harder. But there's only so much they can do when they're caught in the gaggle. Once again, we can only apologise for the lag that's being picked up on your stream. Doing our best to combat it. Not a lot we can do at the moment. There's Ruiz and Tapper. Paolini's not far away from them now, so these three are going to get quite interesting. But Dennis Jordan up in front has lost a lot of time. You can see that there in second position. Let's ride on board with Dennis Jordan. Runs through turn 5. Let's listen on the engine. Great run this from Dennis Jordan, trying to hold everything together. But it's not so easy when you've got a strong chasing pack behind. There is Rolanovic and Fournier. Just chasing him down, just keeping a watching brief at the moment. Again, on board with Jordan's car as we drop back to look with Antonio Gralanovic. Looking for a way to push Dennis Jordan. Just a blip of the throttle you can hear there. Barely on the brakes as they come through 11 and 12. Really pushing the car to the limits. And again, Gralanovic leaves the braking so late into 13. He's able to get back on the power really quickly. And that's where you get a lot of speed out of these cars. He just blips the throttle again, brakes down for 15. You've got to be so careful when you get back on the throttle at this corner, because that's where things can really get messy. But we have got this 4-car train developing. Jordan, Gralanovic, Fournier and Milan. And interestingly, they're actually gaining a bit of time on Dennis Jordan, because they were about 3.5, 4 seconds back. Now, Polotczek, I think he's made a mistake somewhere, and he's lost a bit of ground to these guys. They're actually working almost like kart racers to push each other further forward and close up on the race leader, Tobias Polotczek. But I'm not sure if that's going to work for much longer. We'll look back a little way. That is the battle behind. That's Edgar Ruiz, as he still has Duve Tapper and Dino Paolini behind. So the race continues on here with Stefan Rualt still on the back of Eduard Batalla. From Matthias Canapino, Carlos Fernandez, James Johnson, then Mason, Strand, Willis, Moyano, Fuller and Jordan Weeks rounding out the top 20. Ahead of Batalla, Halsema, Pestov and Foster, with just one retirement from the race, and that is Wopke Hoekstra. So the battle continues on here in the GPVWC Supercup season opener at the Australian Grand Prix Melbourne circuit around the Albert Park complex. Back up the field, that is the 6th place man, that is Jason Muscat, the Maltese driver, doing the best he can to work his way further towards this battle for the 2nd and 3rd rungs of the podium. And he could well get himself neatly placed if he's close enough to the back of this queue. Well, there are some pit stops coming up later, so he might be able to get one over. But he's got to stay with this pack. He can't really afford to drop back too far. And that's where a lot of the action is going to really tell for him. Let's go a little bit further down into the midfield and watch the battle between Matthias Canapino and Carlos Fernandez. Very close indeed in their squabble for 12th position and 13th place. Canapino and Fernandez. So they continue to battle away. It's one of the closer battles on the circuit at the moment. We'll try and pick up a few more of the squabbles. Battle for 17th position a little bit further back going on as well, actually. So let's pick that up. That is Johnson, Mason and Strand. And then we have these two, Willis and Moyano, having a good little tussle. And in behind them is Jordan Weeks. He's come through. So Batalla, Fuller, Halsema, Pestov and Foster are the last ones around the circuit at the moment. But this is a juicy little squabble. Willis has got Moyano and Jordan Weeks in for company as they run around the circuit in formation. Now Willis is in the danger zone here because Moyano's looking very feisty. He's got a good run off turn 9. But Weeks is wise to the manoeuvre as he watches both of them. Willis, Moyano and Jordan Weeks pushing very hard indeed. 17th, 18th and 19th at present. Moyano has a little think about a move on Willis, but he's not going to give him the satisfaction just yet. There's Rualt as he runs in behind Eduard Batalla. And that's the tail end of the top 10. Interestingly, there's still only 10 seconds between the top 10. So the pit stops could really make or break this race. 33 laps, of course, around the Albert Park circuit. And we're on lap 8 at the moment, so we're getting up to 1/3 distance. Now, if I'm right, and most people have gone for the softer compound first, that means that they'll start to think about pit stops in the lap 11 to lap 22 segment of the race. Some drivers like to go as early as physically possible on these tyres and wear them down. Others will like to push it a little bit further. But this is going to be an interesting start to the season as far as the pit stop strategy is concerned. Polotczek running in front of Dennis Jordan, Antonio Gralanovic, Fournier, Milan, Muscat, Ruiz, and then we have this battle, Tapper and Paolini. Edward Patala and Stefan Ruat still pushing each other very hard. Let's go back to the front running squabble. That's Geoffrey Fournier, the Frenchman, doing a good job in the early part of his season. Fournier, of course, running for the Epic Racing squad. And his teammate Rob Mason is currently running down in 15th position, battling away with the man in there just behind him. That is Matt Strand of the Satellite Racing team, so those two still squabbling. But at the moment, Geoffrey Fournier has got his hands full with Borja Milan right behind him. The Spaniard, Borja Milan, racing for the TG Racing squad, the Maltese team. And let's see if they are able to continue this little squabble, because Borja Milan looking very racy at the moment, although interestingly Jason Muscat has lost quite a lot of time to these guys and is slipping down towards the Ruiz-Tapa-Paolini battle. So Muscat may not have a stronghold on 6th position for much longer. Let's ride on board, shall we? This is Antonio Gralanovic on the far side of the circuit. Let's listen. Now, watch him throw into turn 11. He puts it absolutely perfectly. One wheel on the curb, and on the second part, the right-hander, he just chucks the car in, full of conviction, absolute attitude in the car. Great work this from Antonio Gralanovic. He's doing everything he possibly can about Dennis Jordan up in front of him. He knows there isn't a lot, really, he can actually do about this, except just run in position with him. Now, this is back to Geoffrey Fournier. That's Borja Milan behind us, so we're riding on board again with Geoffrey Fournier. Problems elsewhere by the look of it. Yellow flags are out. We'll try and pick it up if there is a bigger incident we need to know about. Ah, now that's not gone well at all. Who's that? That's the 32. That is Strand. Dear, oh dear. Strand is out of the race, I'm afraid to say. So, a big incident there. So, unfortunately, that is the end of the day for Strand. And as we continue around the circuit, now who is that we've just picked up? I think that is Halsema that we've just picked up. And then we move on a little bit further up the field to a couple more of the drivers. So let's go back to our race leader. That is Jordan, in fact. And there is Polotsek. So Tobias Polotsek is not actually pulling away at all from the guys behind them. He's actually losing time. Now, I wonder if he's just controlling the pace of the tyres in this stage of the race. We're on lap 9. Sorry, we're on the 10th lap, actually. And Polotsek is actually in a very strong position here, but he needs to be very careful about just how hard he's pushing. That is the relative speeds, average speeds on the last laps. And actually, Antonio Gralanovic is actually doing a lot quicker a job than some of his other contemporaries out there. Those are the fastest laps of the race. As you can see, Tobias Polotsek, although he's leading the way, he's not actually the fastest man on the circuit. That title goes to Geoffrey Fournier on a 1:31.470. So that is interesting as we watch them again come through. Now we ride on board with Dennis Jordan. That is Gralanovic and Fournier in behind us. They're still squabbling away for 3rd and 4th. Borja Milan not far away either. A very clean race, this one, to be fair. Jason Muscat in 6th position and Edgar Ruiz in there as well. Duve Tapa in 8th from Paolini, Patala, Rualt, Fernandez, Johnson, Canapino and Mason. It's been a very solid start to the Supercup season for 2017 so far. But Polotsek has lost a lot of ground to his teammate Dennis Jordan and therefore the rest of the pack as well. So let's see them as they come through. Polotsek, Jordan, Gralanovic, Fournier, Milan and Muscat. And still the battles rage. Now let's look a little bit further back because the battle is actually intensifying now a bit between Ruiz, Tapa and Paolini. Here it is. Ruiz, Tapa and Paolini nose to tail at the moment. As Paolini goes one way, Tapa goes the other to try and defend and hassle Edgar Ruiz. But Ruiz is not going to be intimidated at this point. We ride on board the nose of Edgar Ruiz. That's how far Jason Muscat is in front of us. So as the cars make their way around, all looks very neat and tidy at the moment. As the battle continues on then around the circuit, let's watch them as they come flying through that final corner. Good pushes from around the circuit. That is Duvet Tapper, the Dutchman. Now, Duvet Tapper, of course, racing for Zederick Racing. In there with his teammate just 2 places up the road, Jason Muscat. And the teams will obviously wanting to have 2 drivers who can be as close to the front as possible. So for Evolution Motorsports, this is the perfect start to the season. The boys from Kirchhain in Germany. Polotzek and Jordan running an absolutely cracking start to the season out in front with the closest challenger, the Croatian Antonio Rolanovic in the Drag Racing car. Yellow flags again. Somebody else has had an incident by the look of it. And is that a particularly big one? Oh, well, we've got a pit stop. So into the pits comes the 39, I think that is. That is Andrei Pestov. So Andrei Pestov is the first driver of the 2017 season, effectively, really, to make a decent pit stop. Jordan Weeks looks like he's pitted in as well, though I hope that's not a game ending. I think it is, actually. So Weeks looks like he's out of the race as exiting the pit lane for the first time. Goes Andrei Pestov, and he rejoins just in there with Halsema, I believe. Or is that Fuller? Actually, I think that might be Fuller in the 96 car. So the battle with those 2 continues. No, that's Dominic Foster, actually. So there or thereabouts is the order of proceedings, as it were. It's the sister car we're actually looking at there. So let's look back to our race leader. There is Tobias Polotzek. And the gap has opened up again, you can see. And interestingly, Rolanovic has actually fallen off the back of Dennis Jordan. And now we've got this 3-way scrap. Rolanovic, Fournier and Milan. They've tightened up, these 3. So it looks as though the pace has been controlled from Evolution Motorsports' 2 drivers, Tobias Polotzek and Dennis Jordan. They're the team to beat here in Australia. But we've got this magnificent battle as Fournier goes for the move on Hranovic and moves up into 3rd position. That was beautiful opportunistic manoeuvre there from Fournier because Rolanovic just dropped it a little bit too deep into turn 6. Couldn't get on the power fast enough to respond. And that was all that Jeffrey Fournier needed to get through. Fantastic overtaking move there from Jeffrey Fournier, the Frenchman. There he is as they go through 11 and 12. And he's already starting to drop the hammer and get away from Hranovic. Borja Milan seizing an opportunity though. Let's have a look. Is this going to be Milan through now? No, he can't get there to the braking zone. I was starting to think the race was a little bit stagnant. Then the boys decided, actually, do you know what? We're not even started yet. Now, it's lap 13, so it's about soonish that we're going to start looking at things like tyre changes. So at the moment, we just have the 3 retire. Now, I was going to say we had 3 retirements from the race. It looks like we have 2 because Wopke Hoekstra has been in the pits and is now back out on the road again by the look of it. So it's only Weeks and Strand who have remained in the pits. But Wopke Hoekstra, having spent 3 laps in the pits, has brought the car back out again. Well, why not get a little bit of extra... Why not get a little bit of extra testing time in? And I'm guessing that could well be the strategy for Weeks and Strand. If their cars are damaged, they may well opt to come back out of the pits again at a later time in the race. And if they do so, we'll know the reason why. Now let's look a little bit further back again as we look at this battle between Ruiz, Tapper, Ruiz and Paolini. That is Duvet Tapper having moved his way up past Edgar Ruiz now. And now having a look for 10th position, that is Stefan Rualt, who has managed to get past Edward Batalla. So 5 cars in position. Tapper, Ruiz, Paolini, Rualt and Batalla. Good little squabble this between these 5. For 7th position, 5 seconds up the road is Jason Muscat in the sister car at Zederick Racing. But at the moment, Duvet Tapper is just trying to break clear and gain some ground. So the battle continues on for several of the drivers. Now Pestov has pitted early and changed compound. But interestingly, Halsema was on his green compound. Now he's on blue. So I think he made a pit stop. We didn't see where that happened. But down the main straight. Polotzek is now not far ahead of Dennis Jordan at all. In fact, if we go further up the road. There is Polotzek and there is Dennis Jordan. Oh, it must have been just a timing glitch as he laps. Now, who is it? He's just lapped there, actually. Looks like it could be Halsema he's just lapped. Yep, so the next man up the road is the man who made a pit stop, Pestov. And Vodka Hoekstra is the only man behind them at the moment. We're on lap 15 of 33 here. Almost at the halfway point. So this is good time management from the leaders, Poletsik and Jordan. We've got an off somewhere on the circuit. Yellow flags aflutter. Now, where is that on the circuit? Well, it's temporary because I couldn't quite keep up with that one, unfortunately. But there's your race leader once more, Poletsik. Dennis Jordan is 3 seconds down the road. Now, when are these guys going to start thinking about pit stops? That's going to be the key, as Poletsik leaves it very late indeed to go up the inside of Pestov to lap him. But then that is why he's the professional racing driver he is, and that's why I'm here in the commentary box nattering away about it. The difference between us, a couple of years of experience and a lot more determination. Over the finish line, Poletsik still looking good as they go into lap 16. And no major catastrophes to report at the moment. Now, we ride underneath the rear wing here on Dennis Jordan's car. And that's the view he's got back behind him. Now, Antonio Vrelanovic is the first big name to make his pit stop. Let's have a look back and see if we can pick him up and figure out where he's going to feed back in. There's Vrelanovic, and who is that going through? Now, that looks to me like Carlos Fernandez. So Fernandez has gone through. And that means that the... well, that is going to drop Vrelanovic down to 12th position then. So the Spaniard, Carlos Fernandez, in the 77 car, now has the man who was provisionally in 3rd position for a time in there for the first of the major players' pit stops. So that is Vrelanovic then making the change. Now, interestingly... now I've got a bit of an issue here on my timing screen because it looks to me as though Vrelanovic has actually made an error there because he's made a pit stop, but I think he's stayed on the same compound. I don't think he's made the right change of tyre. They've all been on blue, except for Halsema, who started on the green compound. Pestov has changed to the green compound. Vrelanovic has made a pit stop, but it hasn't updated colour. Now, either that means there's a glitch in the race view timing screens, which I doubt very much indeed, or he's made a mistake and gone on to the wrong compound of tyre. Now, that would be disaster if he's done that, because, of course, they have to use both sets of compounds for the race, and that means that if he's gone on to the same compound, then he's going to have to make another pit stop. So I'm not sure how we respond to that. We'll do our best to keep up with it. I could be completely wrong here, and that is quite likely, so I'll try my best not to panic people, but that seems to me to be the way things are currently playing out at the moment. Back to the battle for 6th position. Duve Tapa versus Edgar Ruiz. And behind them we still have Dino Paolini and Stefan Rualt. But Jeffrey Fournier, now that he's got rid of Antonio Vrelanovic further up the road, he has actually started to close up. That is Jason Muscat just lapping Pestov, who goes a little bit deep. But there is Jeffrey Fournier, now right on the back of Dennis Jordan once again. And now that he's got rid of Antonio Vrelanovic for the moment, he's actually starting to push big time. He's got a lot of good lap times in the last couple of laps. Now, still looking at the timing screens, it looks to me as though Vrelanovic has not changed compound. Yes, indeed, Vrelanovic is on the same compound that he was on before. Now, that means, for my money, he's got to make another pit stop because he's made a mistake with his tyre strategy there, and he's going to have to pit for the compound again. Now, that's a big hammer blow for Vrelanovic, because they need to make a mandatory pit stop where they switch compound. So he's gone onto the same compound. That's a big error for the Croatian Antonio Vrelanovic. And he will be absolutely kicking himself because he's got to make another pit stop to change tyres then. Otherwise, he will not be legal. So Fournier now right on the back of Dennis Jordan. This is what having Antonio Vrelanovic in front of him has done for Fournier. He's got rid of him and now he's right on the back of Dennis Jordan, who is having to push very hard indeed. The German Dennis Jordan versus the Frenchman Jeffrey Fournier. And actually, Borja Milan, the Spaniard, is not a million miles away from these guys now. 3.4 seconds or so. So he's sitting pretty if these two tangle. Fournier gets very close to Dennis Jordan under braking. Tapper and Ruiz are still really the closest combatants behind, as Relanovic has now moved up past Carlos Fernandez, by the way. But he still has this heartbreaking realisation that he's put the wrong compound of tyres on. He's put the same compound he started on. And that's going to have to be something that the other drivers will have to watch out for. They can't afford to make that mistake, as here comes Fournier. He goes long on Jordan, trying to get the switch back on the inside line. Jordan shuts the door for the moment. So he's making Dennis Jordan sweat a little bit here, Jeffrey Fournier. He does not want this race to be easy for him as they come through the final turn. Jordan is only a few tenths of a second ahead of Fournier now as they run once again. They've got a slower car in front of them. So let's see how this all plays out. But Jeffrey Fournier doing a good job at the moment. He just needs a little bit more patience with Jordan. Well, Dennis Jordan is not going to make it easy as again he defends down to turn 3, round the outside. Is he going to get there? There's not a lot of room. Oh, Jordan makes him work big time, and he runs a little bit deeper, cuts back across. Jeffrey Fournier really wants to get through in a second position. He's got the ignominy of losing time to Tobias Polocek up the road as well. This is not going to be easy. They're going to have to find a way to respond. This is going to be close. This is going to be very tight indeed. As Fournier, oh, he almost goes into the back of Dennis Jordan. Under braking, and he has to back out of it to avoid. So round they come. Polocek, Jordan, Fournier, Milan, Muscat and Tapper is your top 6 at the moment. The rest of these drivers going very long into the race. Now we've had Johnson come in and change tyres. Foster has done likewise. It won't be long before the leaders will do the same. And Johnson and Foster have actually changed to the right compounds. In fact, actually, Pestov is showing up as having been into the pits twice. Yellow flags, as into the pits comes Jeffrey Fournier. So Fournier is the next of the big names to blink. And into the pits behind him there, that looks like Borja Milan. Yes, it is. So they're both in together. Now, they need to change to the right compound here. My timing screen should go green on their tyres, not blue. Because that's the same mistake that Relanovic made. But interestingly, where are they going to feed out? They've got to look at it from the point of view of where they will return to the circuit. So out onto the circuit goes Fournier. Now that's a big move up through the field compared to Relanovic. He's gained about 2 seconds on him. Now, hang on a second. Fournier, Relanovic and Milan have all come out on the blue compounds. They started on the blue tyres. So, I'm not entirely sure how that works. Maybe there's a gap in my knowledge somewhere that I need to be aware of. As far as I can tell, they're going to need to change... Surely they need to change compounds at some point. I don't know. Maybe I've got it completely wrong. Someone will have to clarify for me at some point. Polocek is now your leader in front of Dennis Jordan. Jason Muscat has been promoted to 3rd position as a result of that pit stop. Tapper is now 4th ahead of Paolini. Stefan Rualt. Edward Batalla. There is the man in 3rd position. That is Jason Muscat. Running in P3 as we go on to lap 21 next time around. And there is Dennis Jordan running behind his teammate Tobias Polocek. So the 2 Evolution Motorsport cars going very long into the race. Johnson and Foster have changed compounds, that is for certain. Now Fuller is in the pits this time by, and he has lost ground. Polocek and Jordan are going very deep into this stint. But interestingly, Fournier has now got Relanovic right on his tail as Stefan Rualt becomes the next of the leaders to make a pit stop. So that promotes Fournier and Relanovic to 7th and 8th and Borja Milan to 9th. Ruiz will go up to 10th position, no doubt. Although Ruiz having made a pit stop as well, that's significant. So where will he feed out in the realms of Rualt? Because Ruiz has been into the pits. And here they come. Now, Fournier and Milan's tyres have updated and they are on the green compound. So yes, they have changed to the right tyre compound. But interestingly, we still know that... Relanovic does not appear to have done so. It looks like the Croatian has made a big mistake with his tyre strategies. He's still on the blue compound. He did not start on the green. So he is going to have to switch one more time. Or he may just continue to run on in the hope that the punishment won't be too big. But I have a feeling that one's going to be picked up later. if he was to stay out anyway. So Tobias Polotczek and Dennis Jordan in the Evolution cars. Now, which is going to be the first of these two cars to blink and make a pit stop? We'll figure out which of the two it's going to be. But Polotczek runs well at the moment. Jordan, Muscat, Tapper, Paolini and Battalla are the top 6. Although Relanovic is the leading car that has pitted. Then it's Fournier, Milan, Rualt and Ruiz. All of which have made a pit stop. Fernandez, Johnson, Canapino, Moyano, Foster, Muller, Pestov and Hoekstra have all been in the pits at least once behind them. So now we're waiting into this second half. Well, yes, we're well into the second half now, aren't we? We're on lap 22. So we're at exactly 2/3 distance now to see who's going to pit in. Now, interestingly, we also need to figure out with the Evolution Motorsport boys who's going to pit in first of these two cars. There is Dennis Jordan behind Tobias Polotczek. Battalla makes the pit stop, so too does Rob Mason. So Battalla will rejoin in 11th position. And I think Mason will probably rejoin behind Carlos Fernandez and Gerard Battalla. Yes, indeed. I think James Johnson may even fly past as well. But Polotczek is your leader. Jordan second. Muscat is third. 14 seconds back. Tapper and Paolini still battling away for position. Only this time it's 4th and 5th. With Relanovic in 6th ahead of Jeffrey Fournier and Borja Milan. Although the way I look at it, I think Relanovic has made a big mistake in terms of tyre choice. The other drivers in there have all changed compounds. The only man who hasn't is Relanovic. I think he's made a big mistake on tyre change. Now, interestingly, Pestov has been 12 tyres on the, I believe, the softer tyre. Has done 6 laps on the hard, then come back in and changed to the softer compound again. So he's obviously finding that that's the rhythm that works for him. And into the pits comes Polotczek. So Polotczek is now in the pits. Now Muscat goes through in a second. Duvet Tapper's come into the pits as well. Now, Polotczek rejoins in behind Dino Paolini. And that is a slower car in behind. So Polotczek slots in 3 seconds down the road from Dino Paolini and in front of the lapped Foster. So that looks a-okay to me. There is Jason Muscat. Muscat is second position now. In front of him is Dennis Jordan. But according to my calculations, I'm afraid to say that Relanovic is going to need to pit again to be legal. He's going to be absolutely hopping mad about it. He may not even have noticed, of course. That's the difficulty. He may not even know that he's on the wrong tyre at this point. Yellow flag. It's a little bit of a moment there for Dennis Jordan, I think. It's hard to know when it's lag and when it's actually an incident, but I think on that occasion, Jordan did actually go off the road a little bit there. Maybe the tyres are just starting to scream, I've had enough, I've had enough. So he brings the car round the final couple of corners of the lap into turn 15. Will he dive for the pits this time by? No, he continues on. Now that's interesting. If he's not losing it too much time, then that could prove very costly if it goes wrong. But if it goes right, then he'll have tyres that are 2 laps fresher than his teammate Tobias Polotczek's. And that could really count for him later on. Into the pits comes Muscat. There he is, Muscat in the pits. Now we've got a yellow flag somewhere. It's a brief one. So not a major catastrophe. Now this is Ruiz travelling behind Stefan Rualt. There is Rualt. Muscat's in the pits. Now he will come back onto the circuit in or around this battle. Here's Duvet Tapper. And he gets on. Now here comes Muscat. He rejoins behind Borja Milan. So that's about where he was at the pits actually. It's about the same sort of gap. But interestingly, Tobias Polotczek still about 6 seconds ahead of Relanovic. So not a massive amount of time lost in the pit stops. Although, unfortunately, it surely is going to be short-lived for the Croatian Antonio Relanovic, who is on, for my money, the wrong tyre choice of compound. So surely it's going to be Dennis Jordan and Dino Paolini into the pits before very long. They'll have less than 10 laps to go. There is Tobias Polotczek running in 3rd position. Looking good for the victory if things stay as they are. There is Dino Paolini a few seconds up the road. But he will need to make a pit stop. And so too will this man, Dennis Jordan, who does come in. Now, interestingly, Jordan's tyres are, what's that, 2 laps newer. These last set of tyres will be 2 laps newer than his teammate Tobias Polotczek. Now, on the first lap, that could be quite tricky because he'll need to get the tyres up to temperature. But by the end of the race, if he looks after the tyres, he might even be able to get a run on his teammate Tobias Polotczek. Now, Polotczek goes through and takes the lead. That is not a surprise. Now, there's Dino Paolini, who cuts in front of Dennis Jordan. Jordan's in the pits for a long time. Way too long. Rolanovic goes through. Jeffrey Fournier is going to go through. This is a disaster for Dennis Jordan. He drops from 2nd place to 4th. Oh, this has not gone well for Dennis Jordan at all. So, the only comfort is he's the last man to pit of the leading bunch. So his tyres will be a lot fresher than Jeffrey Fournier and Antonio Rolanovic. But this is a big, dramatic step in this race. We're right on board with Dennis Jordan on the left side pod as he flies his way around the circuit through turn 6, flicks up the turn a little bit on through 7. But this is turning into an absolute cracker of a strategy fight. There's Jeffrey Fournier running in 3rd position, although for my money that's effectively 2nd because Rolanovic further up the road, there he is. He's on the wrong compound. I'm sorry, but there are no 2 ways about this. But interestingly, I don't think he's the only one. I don't think he's the only one, actually. Yes, I think also... Well, it's saying here the 2nd compound for Jordan has not yet updated. But then, of course, it should update the first time he comes across the line. So I would suspect that Jordan has surely gone on to the correct compound of tyre as well. Looks like only here Rolanovic is going to be the one who's made the mistake. As Jordan comes through and over the line, hopefully we'll see that he's gone onto the green compound of tyre, and so too has Paolini. They come across the line. Jordan has indeed done so and changed to the right compound. I think Paolini has done so as well. So it's only really Rolanovic who has got it wrong. Now, interestingly, there is still one driver who has yet to make a pit stop, I think. Or have they just done it now? No, they have just done it now. That's Battalla. And Battalla is the last one to have made the compulsory pit stop. Although, interestingly, Rolanovic has not gone on to the right compound. So it's him we need to look at, especially when you consider that he is actually catching the race leader, Tobias Polotczek. The gap has come down from what was 6 seconds to now about 3.6, 3.5 seconds. So what is going to happen about Antonio Rolanovic, the Croatian? Because I don't believe he's on the right compound of tyre. He's going to need to make a quick dash into the pits to see how much time he loses here. Everybody has changed compound except for Rolanovic. They've all made pit stops, but only Antonio Rolanovic has not changed compound. It's a big mistake for the Croatian, and he may not even know he's made it. But the gap is now down to less than 3 seconds in places around the circuit. So this is going to be a very interesting sting in the tail for this first race of the Super Cup. We're on lap 27 of 33. So we have 7 to go. Yellow flags. Is it a big one? Yes, it does look like it's a prolonged accident this time. Oh, that's a big off. That is for the number 40, I think that is. That's one of the... I think, is that Edgar Ruiz who's gone off there, potentially? I think that was Edgar Ruiz who went off the circuit there, in behind Edward Battalla. So yes, Ruiz has lost the car in front of Carlos Fernandez. Other than that, it looks pretty stable. Now, let's go up the road and see if we can find the Muscat-Paolini battle. There it is. Jason Muscat and versus him, Dino Paolini. As they scrap away for 6th position. Yellow flags out elsewhere as well. Another yellow flag incident. And again, it's a small one. So no major catastrophes. I want to pick up as well the Dennis Jordan Borja Milan battle. Because now Borja Milan has caught right up to the back of Dennis Jordan. And those two are having a good scrap. So Borja Milan might be able to get into the top 4. Which, of course, if Rolanovic does have to pit again or take a penalty, then Rolanovic will actually drop back. And this could be for the final step of the podium, don't forget. Now, Johnson is back in the pits. Not sure why. But Johnson has obviously decided for the last 5 laps something is wrong. Yellow flags again. What's happened out on the circuit? It's a quick one, so not a major concern. A couple of cars in the pits having retired from the race. Let's see who is actually a non-finisher. We've lost Canapino, Alsema, Weeks and Strand. So that is another retirement, unfortunately. There's Jeffrey Fournier. But interestingly, how about this? The gap is coming down big style between Polotzik and Rolanovic. Rolanovic, who is going to find, if he crosses the line as the race winner, could get it taken away from him. Because as far as I'm concerned, he's on the wrong compound of tyre. And he's closing in on Polotzik. So we'll leave the officials to sort that one out. But with less than a second and a half in it, Rolanovic is now right on the back of Tobias Polotzik. And this could change the entire face of the race, especially if he tries for a move. Because Polotzik is just trying to keep the car on the straight and narrow. A little bit of lag there. It's neither driver going off the road. We're in the final couple of seconds of gap. There's the gap coming down dramatically as Polotzik desperately tries to hang on to his lead in front of Antonio Rolanovic, the Croatian. Evolution Motorsports battling away for the victory here versus an incredibly feisty Croatian in Antonio Rolanovic for the Drake Racing team. Now this is tricky because Matthias Canapino is out of the race. And I wonder if that's to do with just pushing the car a little bit. But look, Rolanovic is now right on the back of Polotzik. Now, of course, if he started on the... If he's got a fresher tyre to Polotzik, if Polotzek's tyres are already starting to go off, then if Rolandovic's tyre can last longer, then that's why he's got a bit more pace at this latter stage of the race. He doesn't have to look after the tyres half as well as Polotzik does. So Rolanovic is able to gain an advantage from not having to change compounds. He's right on the back of Polotzik. Antonio Rolanovic, the Croatian, is going to try and make a bid for the lead here. Right on board with Rolanovic, and he's got plenty of grip on Polotzik. He's going to try for the move, is he? Here he goes. Up to the inside line. There's not much to choose between them, and there's contact! Contact! I don't believe it. Tobias Polotzik spins the car, gets it back going again, and Antonio Rolanovic has gone through to take the lead. Oh, well, if there wasn't going to be some interesting controversy from this race anyway, then there definitely is now. Polotzik, one might argue Polotzik has turned across on Rolanovic when he's already alongside him. Another might argue Rolanovic should never have dived for the move when he wasn't far enough alongside Polotzik. But whatever way you look at it, Polotzik is the man who spins. Rolanovic is the man who gets away with it. And considering, for my money, he's on the wrong compound anyway, this could be a very dramatic post-race debrief. Well, anyway, Rolanovic is scurrying the scene and disappearing from the scene of the crime as he tries to get away. So it's now Rolanovic leading from Polotzik, Fournier, Jordan, Milan, Muscat, Paolini, Tapper, Rualt and Batalla. Well, I'm not sure how this is going to play out though, because I don't know what the protocol is at this point for a driver who continues on having made a mandatory pit stop but not having changed compound. And then going after the race leader with plenty more grip, taking him and pitching him off almost, you could argue, in the process. So this is going to be an incredibly entertaining end to the race for the officials. They've got their work cut out in the final 4 laps. What do we do to Rolanovic? Did he cause the incident? Did Polotzik cause the incident? Or was it just a racing incident? 2 drivers failing to concede a corner to the other. It is possible that that's how they'll see it. Little bit of a moment there for those 2. But further back, there could be another one spicing up as Duvet Tapper has been caught by Stefan Rualt. There we go. That is Muscat and Paolini. And behind them is Tapper and Rualt. Oh, that's a spin for Muscat. Muscat spins. Oh, disaster for Jason Muscat. Into turn 9. He loses the car right in front of Dino Paolini. Rejoins with the battling Mayano and Willis, who have already been lapped. Just trying to go back past them. Muscat's trying to get himself back in position. Mayano makes the bid for Willis on the inside. Oh, and there's more sliding around. Yellow flags elsewhere as well. Not sure who it is that time. Oh, well, that's who it is. It's one of the back markers that's gone. So, a couple of drivers then going off the circuit there in position. So, let's try and pick up where we are again. That's Batalla that we're just watching there. We'll try and bring the cars back to the front of the grid again. because Rolanovic is getting away with 3 to go. There's Borja Milan in 5th position. So Dennis Jordan has well and truly dealt with him. But Polotczek is not able to keep tabs on that man, Antonio Rolanovic, who leads the way and has got himself a bit of a gap. But I would not at all be surprised if there's a bit of a debate about this one. Yes, he did make the mandatory pit stop. No, he didn't change tyre compound. But did he or didn't he take Polotczek off the circuit? That's an interesting call, and I'm not sure I'd want to be the one who makes it. So, the Croatian, Antonio Rolanovic, leads here in the first race of the 2017 GPVWC Supercup season. And obviously there's going to be recriminations from this one potentially, depending on what the officials have judged to be the case. I was just looking there for a yellow flag incident, didn't find one. We'll take a quick pause in proceedings in between races. As into the pits comes Rolanovic. He knows he's got to make a pit. He knows he's got to change compound. So he's going to leave it to the last minute. So that's why he was powering his way past Polotczek. He wanted to gain as much time as he physically could. Now the question is, where is he going to get out? I would suspect he's going to drop to 5th position. He should get out just in front of Dino Paolini. But Antonio Rolanovic, he knows he's made an absolute howler of an error here. There he goes, back out on circuit, behind Borja Milan, in front of Dino Paolini. So Tobias Polotczek, he's going to get the victory after all. Now the officials may decide that because he has obviously now dodged a penalty by coming in, well, they may also decide, hang on, wasn't he to blame for that incident with Tobias Polotczek? So they'll have to decide on that one. I'm not sure how that's going to work, but we're on the penultimate lap. And it's all about this man. The crowd have already started applauding at the side of the road as the German Tobias Polotczek is going to come through for fine style in the Evolution Motorsports car. And his teammate Dennis Jordan is going to come through at this rate for 3rd position. So it will be a double podium for the team. They locked out the front row, but they're not going to quite finish 1st and 2nd. Dennis Jordan taking a long time in his pit stop, and that has handed 2nd position to Jeffrey Fournier. Borja Milan in 4th position. Antonio Rolanovic, this will be the race that got away from him, because he could very easily have been 2nd in this race had it not been for the fact he needed to make another pit stop. So 5th position is going to be painful for Rolanovic. It will hurt. It will hurt a lot. But we go now into the final lap of the 2017 Super Cup season opener, and it's been pretty much plain sailing for Tobias Polotczek despite that little hiccup with Antonio Rolanovic. Fortunately, he was far enough ahead of Jeffrey Fournier and Dennis Jordan that it wasn't even a blip on the Germans' radar. Duvet Tapper and Stefan Rualt is the next best battle on the circuit, but this is the man we want to watch as he comes home after a cracking first race of the season. He has really pushed it to the extreme, Tobias Polotczek. In qualifying, he had the lap time he needed. In the race, he's had the pace he's needed as well. And I think there's been contact between Stefan Rualt and Duvet Tapper. Let's have a look back. Yes, that is Duvet Tapper with damage to his car. Stefan Rualt has got away with it. So those two have collided. We'll have to talk about that one a bit later on. But Duvet Tapper dropping to 9th on the last lap in his battle with Stefan Rualt. Oh, it's going to be a lot worse than that. Too much damage at the front end for Duvet Tapper. He's going to crawl home. Hopefully still in the top 10. But it's a real headache for Duvet Tapper. But as we go back to the race leader, it's all been heaven sent for Tobias Polotczek. It almost went awry, but he kept his head. He got back on the circuit when Rolanovic had overtaken him. And he made sure he got this race nailed to the mast. Out of the final turn, and it's a great victory for Tobias Polotczek. A great victory for Evolution Motorsports. The German celebrates. He has every right to do so. It's been a commanding race for Tobias Polotczek. What a victory. Brilliant job. Jeffrey Fournier comes home in 2nd position in front of the 2nd Evolution car of Dennis Jordan. Here comes Borja Milan in 4th position. Antonio Rolanovic, a disappointed 5th position. What a mistake to make in the pit stops. Dino Paolini comes home for a valiant 6th place in front of Stefan Rualt. 8th position is going to be Jason Muscat. He had a good race today, could easily have been a top 6, but unfortunately the pace just wasn't quite there to run with the leaders up in front. Edward Batalla comes home in 9th position, and Duvet Tapper is only just going to bring his car home in 10th position despite losing the front wing. Edgar Ruiz comes home 11th. He'll be a little disappointed with that. He was running higher up in the earlier stages of the race. Carlos Fernandez comes home for 12th position. Rob Mason will be next in the 49. So Rob Mason in the second of the Epic Racing cars, along with his teammate Geoffrey Fournier, who was second. So a good run then in the end for Rob Mason. Gerard Batalla is going to be the next man home in front of James Johnson. Their battle comes to a solid finish. And then it'll be the remainder of the drivers who have come through. Moyano in 16th place. Willis in 17th. Foster in 18th position. Fuller in 19th place in front of Pestov. So there we are. An absolutely fantastic end to this first race of the season for Tobias Polotczek. Driving home in valiant style in front of Geoffrey Fournier. And he takes the victory. So there you have it. Antonio Hralanovic almost cost Tobias Polotczek a victory there, but he managed to find his way back. And hopefully now that he's had to take his pit stop and drop back, I don't think the officials will do too much about that one. They certainly shouldn't do, for my money. Now that the correct order has happened, I hope that justice will prevail. And we'll come back to the action here at Australia as they manage to bring themselves in for the warm-up for the second race. The sprint race will be much shorter, of course, but we'll return to the feed here in Australia when the warm-up session has ended. So don't go too far away. We will return when the racing comes back to the vibrant electricity we've had so far here in Australia. The second Super Cup race is coming up shortly. Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the action from the GPVWC Super Cup season opener for the 2017 season from the Albert Park circuit in Melbourne, Australia. Jake Sanson here, bringing you all the action from every single race of the week here at Australia, and hopefully for as much of the 2017 season as is physically possible. Well, it's reverse grid sprint race time, and after the first race we've already had some debriefs from a few of the drivers. A lot of the front runners, in particular the likes of Antonio Hralanovic and Geoffrey Fournier, complaining about a big build-up of dirty air in the third sector of proceedings. That's actually one of the reasons Antonio Hralanovic claims is the factor for why he couldn't get past Dennis Jordan over the course of the race. So that was his downfall. And actually, Antonio Hralanovic, I was correct. He did actually state at his pit stop he made the biggest mistake. He chose the wrong tyre, and he only realised it as he was stationary in the pits. We've all been there. We've all done it. It's one of the most painful moments as a racing driver. You suddenly realise that you haven't got your tyre strategy right, and it's so irritating and infuriating. But there's not a lot you can do about it. So as the drivers line up in positions then in their cars, ready for the start of their second race of the 2017 season. The cars are all lining up in position on the starting grid, as you can see. And the reverse grid slot is P8. So that means that it's going to be Jason Muscat who lines up on the front row of the starting grid for pole position for his first race of the 2017, first sprint race, I should say, the 2017 season. He'll line up beside Stefan Rualt with Dino Paolini in third on the grid. And this time, Antonio Hralanovic has actually been given a bit of a bonus there because finishing the race in 5th position means he'll start from P4 and actually enters this race as a mini favourite coming into this one. Borja Milan in 5th position. Dennis Jordan will be 6th alongside Geoffrey Fournier, and Tobias Polotczek are together on the 4th row of the grid. Edward Batalla and Duvet Tapper are next in line with Edgar Ruiz and Carlos Fernandez. Rob Mason and Gerard Battalla, with James Johnson in 15th position. And unfortunately, just as I start to go through the rest of the grid, my timing screen goes down, so I will get that back in position fairly soon, hopefully. So the drivers are getting themselves ready for action in this race. They want to make sure that the sprint race goes off without a hitch. That is the longer race that has already happened, so they will now work their way through for the remainder of this first race of the season. So the drivers are getting themselves ready in position. Jason Muscat, Stefan Rualt, Dino Paolini, Antonio Gralanovic, Borja Milan, Dennis Jordan, Jeffrey Fournier and Tobias Polocek is your top 8 after their reverse grid. Then the rest of the drivers are in position from where they finished at the end of race 1. Edward Battalla, Duve Tapper, Edgar Ruiz, Carlos Fernandez, Rob Mason, Gerard Battalla, James Johnson, Javier Moyano, Ben Willis, Dominic Foster, Mark Fuller, Andrei Pestov, Vupka Hoekstra, Matthias Carapino, TJ Halsema, Jordan Weeks, Matt Strand, and hopefully this time Sandeep Choda. In fact, there is Sandeep Choda. Looks as though he's going to start this race from the back of the grid. Now, interestingly, I think Matt Strand has elected to start this race from the pit lane. That is interesting. So Matt Strand will start this race from pit road. Let's double check that and see where Matt Strand actually is on the racetrack. No, there is Matt Strand, my apologies. So Matt Strand is there in position, and then there at the back is Sandeep Choda. So the cars will make their way round in position as the Indian, Sandeep Choda, brings his number 5 onto the pit straight. It's going to be an interesting start to this race. Muscat on the right, Rualt on the left from Paolini, Gralanovic, Milan, Jordan, Fournier, Polocek, Battalla, Tapper and the rest. So let's see how this race gets underway. It's going to be a difficult one for a lot of the drivers in position. So let's see how they all cope with this second race of the season. Lights out and away we go. Now, Jason Muscat gets a good start. Stefan Rualt has got a cracker alongside him as well. It's a good start from Dennis Jordan on the third row. He's going to try and get up alongside Antonio Gralanovic to the inside line. And sweeping through. Good start from Muscat. As they all sweep through in position. Looks like they're all going to get through in good form. No major dramas in the first couple of corners then. So that's fine. As they come through next time around, let's see. Are they all going to get through the next time? Yep, it looks like a clean getaway through turn 3 as everybody knits their way through that tight right-hand hairpin. And I think everybody just about getting away without too much incident. So let's see how the field continues on. Whoops, we seem to have lost the tone of the field. Apologies. There's your race leader, Jason Muscat. And yellow flags further back. So I guess that means we've got an incident elsewhere on the circuit. We'll try and pick it up as best as we can. Oh, yep, there it is. That is a spinner. That is the 71. So already we've got a big moment down to the back. I think that is Ben Willis, who has already gone off the circuit a little further back. So let's bring the cars back into position at the front of the field. Now that is Tobias Polocek, I believe. No, sorry, that's Dennis Jordan as he runs in 5th position. Dino Paolini is there in 4th place. And already the battle is starting to get pretty hectic. This is on board with Antonio Gralanovic as he runs in behind Jason Muscat and Stefan Rualt. First lap of the race. Now Gralanovic, having moved up to 3rd position, is significant because he's going to try and get out in front of Rualt and Muscat. And if he can do that, then he might be able to get there quick enough to get away from the likes of Jordan and Polocek. So he's running and hiding if he can. He needs to get onto the tail of Stefan Rualt to do that. But it's definitely a good start. So as he charges his way further forward, he will be trying his best to move up and away from his opponents. So it all looks good at the moment in this race for Antonio Gralanovic. Now, of course, there's no restrictions on compounds in this race. They can choose whatever compounds they like. Now, we got an off somewhere. Now, yellow flags are out somewhere on the circuit, trying to see who that is that's had an off. And it's a long, prolonged yellow flag. So we might have a race retirement. I'll keep an eye on that one. Apologies, we weren't able to pick that one up on that corner. Still a little bit of lag, I'm afraid. We'll do our best to fix this for next time. Now, I think it's Carlos Fernandez. Yes, Carlos Fernandez is out of the race, I'm afraid to say. So, Carlos Fernandez has not been able to start his sprint race campaigns on a high. So we have now one retirement, and that is Carlos Fernandez. Hopefully we'll get the news from him as to what happened to his race a little bit later on in the night. So Jason Muscat continues to lead Stefan Rualt. Unfortunately, the lag is still causing a bit of an issue, but we'll try and stay with it as we can. Muscat out in front of Rualt. So we ride on board with Stefan Rualt. And there is Antonio Gralanovic. Now we're riding on board with Dino Paolini, just a little way behind actually, in 4th position, looking back to the battle between Dennis Jordan and Borja Milan as they run in position. And this is on board with Dennis Jordan as they go through turn 3. Borja Milan is behind us, and there is Milan as we look back to Jeffrey Fournier and Tobias Polocek. 6.5 seconds between the top 8. But incredibly, not much has changed in that gap. So, some interesting battles all the way through this field. And as a result of this, we've actually got some interesting battles all around the circuit. But Muscat is doing exactly what he needs to lead the field. There he is, Jason Muscat in the lead, in front of Stefan Rualt. But the gap is coming down rapidly. And the man who really wants to benefit from all of this is the man in 3rd position, Antonio Gralanovic. We'll keep an eye on this and see how this all plays out. But there is Stefan Rualt running in 2nd position. Looking forward to seeing what he can do in the pressure cooker here, the Deltec Racing driver. James Johnson, his teammate, running around the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th position, although I think he has just dropped out of the top 10, James Johnson, to now run in 14th position, just in front of Gerard Batalla. I think that yellow flag was for him. It looked like he lost a few places. So Stefan Rualt still quite close to the back of Jason Muscat. Let's ride on board. Here we are, Stefan Rualt we ride on board with. That is Jason Muscat up the road. And if we look one place down, this is on board with Antonio Gralanovic. What a view! Out through 3. Up towards 4. Plenty of curve on the exit. Antonio Gralanovic looking very feisty in the early stages here. And now, don't forget, they've also got the chasing Dino Paolini in for company as well. So this could be quite an entertaining battle. Not in the way that Gralanovic wants it to be. He's not far away from being in between a rock and a hard place, but he's got a genuine chance of going for a sprint race victory here. Less than a second behind Muscat. He's tightened up the gap between himself and Rualt. And Muscat is being reeled in as well. So there's some good battles going on here between these two cars as they chase after Jason Muscat. And at the moment, it all looks tickety-boo. So Gralanovic is the one who's actually gaining a lot of ground here. I'm surprised, actually, that Tobias Polocek... now we've lost the battle for Edgar Ruiz. Ruiz has dropped back a little bit. Drops back behind James Johnson. And I think he's got some damage. So let's have a look at Edgar Ruiz and see if we can find him. Not sure if we're going to be able to find him yet. Let's see if we can pick up Ruiz. He's dropped a long way back down the order. We've got yellow flags. Oh, and that's why! Maiano hits the wall. Big damage there. So, unfortunately, that has not gone well at all. And that's a big problem, I'm afraid to say. And that could be a race-ending manoeuvre there for... That could be a race-ending moment for Maiano. He pits in, and look, just in front of him, that is Ruiz from his own earlier off. So 2 cars in the pits to repair damage. Game over in terms of decent points. So 2 cars in the pit, and what are they going to do? They're going to repair. So their race continues. Back to the front, and it is tightening up again between these 3. Muscat, Rualt, and Gralanovic. Dino Paolini in 4th position, right on the tail as well. So we've got these 3 cars squabbling away up the front. Muscat, Rualt, Gralanovic, Paolini, Jordan, Fournier, Milan, and Polocek. But interestingly, Tobias Polocek is not actually able to get on terms with Borja Milan. Fournier has got past Milan, the Spaniard, so he's through. But Polocek has actually not made the progress I thought he would in the early stages of this race. You can just about see him in the background. Well, you couldn't quite, because Borja Milan was there and Polocek had not yet come through. So he needs to gain a little bit of ground, but fortunately for Polotczek, Muscat is kind of holding the field to ransom at the moment, leading this race. Pulls a little way across to the middle of the circuit to try and bring Stefan Rualt with him. Rualt's having a think about this into turn 1. Yellow flags again. Now, who is it that's gone? Oh, it's only a brief blip. But interestingly, as a result of the couple of incidents we've had in this race, Sandip Choda, the Indian, has actually shot up into 14th position. He's climbing through the field rapidly as Stefan Rualt has a look at Jason Muscat, then has to back out of it, and that puts him back into the clutches of Antonio Kralanovic. There's the battle again. So Stefan Rualt is doing everything he can to get past Muscat, but in having to back out of it, he runs the risk of letting Antonio Kralanovic slip by him. So this is not going to be an easy task. Here we go, on board with Kralanovic once again. And now we pick up the cam. Now we pick up the helmet cam. Antonio Kralanovic trying his best to get a good opportunity here. But Rualt has managed to get away a little bit. Now he's attacking Muscat once again. Kralanovic in 3rd position, still putting on a brave face of it. Paolini in 4th. Jordan is 5th. Fournier 6th. 7th is Borja Milan. And 8th position, Tobias Polotczek is just not as close as I thought he'd be by now. This is very interesting. I can't quite figure out where Tobias Polotczek's pace has gone from race 1 to race 2. But for some reason, he hasn't really been able to close up the gap. Well, it's about 5.3 seconds, I say, having said that. So it now is starting to get there. And we're only on lap 8, so there's still plenty of time, 12 laps, for this race to evolve. And I have a feeling it will do. Muscat, Rualt, Kralanovic, Paolini, Jordan, Fournier, Milan and Polotczek. That's the battle at the moment in this first GPVWC Supercup race of the sprint variation of the 2017 season. We had the feature race earlier on, of course. This is the first sprint mad dash to the flag of the Supercup season 2017. And now what can Antonio Kralanovic do about Stefan Rualt? He's definitely closer than he has been for a while. And as he gets down to the chicane, he may have an opportunity here. Comes back on the throttle. There is a chance he can make this work. But he's going to have to be very careful about it. Round the far side, through 11 and 12. Little bit of lag, but don't worry, they are still in those positions. And Kralanovic is still taking it to the top of the field here. Still trying to make a play. They come off the curbs. He wants one more crack at Stefan Rualt. He has a feeling, you can almost sense, that if he gets an opportunity to get underneath him, he will not only get by, but disappear. So, the end of the 7th lap, they're going to come through. 12 laps to go. And Muscat from Rualt and Kralanovic. There's less than 0.8 of a second between them at that point. Yellow flags elsewhere around the circuit. Are we about to lose another? Let's have a look. Oh, we've got a crashed car on the side of the circuit by the look of it. Let's have a look and see if we've got any more cars there in pit road. Okay, well, we've lost... now that's damage to Moyano by the look of it. No, it was just the... that was just the remnants of the earlier incident and then the lag for it. So I'm not sure what's happened. We'll have to have a look at it. It's Dominic Foster. Dominic Foster and TJ Halsema have joined Carlos Fernandez on the sidelines, I'm afraid to say. So Foster and Halsema, they are retirements as well. Moyano has decided to continue after repairing his car. And it's not quite gone the way that either of those men would have wanted it to go. So Jason Muscat giving himself a fair hearing at the front of this field, but Rualt is right there with him. So what are we going to see from this battle? Who's going to make the first move? Will Muscat make a mistake, or will Rualt get through with a fine overtake? And if they're not careful, Antonio Kralanovic is just going to pounce anyway. Through to turn 15. Looking good for Antonio Kralanovic to make the move. But now, because it's taken so long, Paolini is there in 4th position. Jordan is right there in 5th. Jeffrey Fournier has come along for the ride. Borja Milan is 7th, and they've actually held up everybody so much that Tobias Polotczek is at the back of the queue. It is an 8-car train for the victory now. And somebody's going to have to blink. So as we watch this leading battle, Rualt has a think about it, but doesn't go through. Let's run you through the grid, run you through the race order, sorry, very, very quickly on lap 9 of 19. Muscat leading from Rualt, Relanovic, Paolini, Jordan, Fournier, Milan, Polotsek. That's the train of 8 cars at the front of this field. Then it's Patala in front of Hoekstra. Tapper is 11th from Johnson, Mason, Choda, Patala, Strand, Weeks, Canapino. Pestov is 19th ahead of Willis. Then it's Fuller, Ruiz and Moyano with Foster, Halsema and Fernandez all out of this race. Now, Rualt's had a go at Muscat, but then he's had to back out of it. That meant that Relanovic had to back out of it a little bit. And now he's fallen back towards Dino Paolini. This is on board with Dino Paolini. We've got Dennis Jordan and Jeffrey Fournier right up behind us as we watch the battle for third position up in front. Stefan Rualt and Antonio Relanovic. Dino Paolini's been getting on with this race weekend very quietly and consistently, but that's going to bring him some good points. He's right there where he needs to be in every circumstance, Dino Paolini. In fourth position would be a good place to run. So let's drop one back. So if we drop one back, and let's ride on board with Dennis Jordan for this lap. Through 1 and 2, up on the throttle, let's listen through the gears. Brakes just beyond the 100-metre board as he turns in for turn 3, hugs the apex. Get it carefully on the lock stops, mid-apex of the throttle. Very nicely done there. Flat on the throttle through 5. He wants to get the best run towards 6. Wait for the braking zone. Now he gets there just before the 50-metre board. He only needs to blip the brake and then dash in for the right-hander. Fast flowing right up towards 9 and 10, the chicane. Wait for the braking point. Now, just after the 100-metre board. Not too much curb on the inside. Gets a good run through and back on the throttle. So fast through here. Hugs the inside, tucks out to the outside, then throws it in for 11. Great line there. Back on the curbs again. Just a little lag, don't worry about that. Jordan in 5th, ahead is Dino Paolini, behind is Jeffrey Fournier. But the gap is tightening up between the top 8. There's only 5 seconds between these 8 cars. Through 14, careful on the line through. Plenty of curb on the exit. Gets the car straightened up for the braking zone for 15. Back on the power. And then back on the throttle again for turn 16. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a lap of the Albert Park circuit. Jason Muscat leads the way. Rualt 2nd, Relanovic 3rd from Paolini, Jordan, Fournier, Milan and Polotsek. Now, Batalla is 10.5 seconds behind this train, and he isn't really gaining any ground, I can tell you. And no surprises, everybody in this race has gone for the blue compounds. They want to try and make them last for the 19 laps. So they're all on the softs. That should last them to the end, but they have still got to be a little bit careful of their tyre management. Those more crafty drivers were able to make it last right the way through to the death. So let's see if Muscat can hang on to this for a little bit longer. Rualt, Relanovic, Paolini, Jordan, Fournier, Milan and Polotsek all waiting in the wings. But Jason Muscat needs to hang on to this at the moment. But he's got every reason to consider that he could do that. So there's every chance that Muscat's going to be in for a strong contention for a victory here. Jason has had a good run so far. Former Super League driver, of course, don't forget. He won with Red Archer at Belgium back in 2010. And he took 2 victories for the team in 2011 in Austria and in Mexico. And of course, he's been in and out of Supercup as well. 3 previous victories. His last win in Supercup was back in 2011 in Belgium for the Globe Racing team. So this would be a great opportunity to start the season on a high for Jason Muscat. His first win in Supercup for 6 years, if he can pull this off. He's going to have a bit of a tough one though. Stefan Rualt is definitely giving him some challenge. And Rualt is going to have some competition of his own from Antonio Relanovic. Dino Paolini's in there as well in 4th position. This is not going to be easy, that is for certain. But then there is another man who could get in the mix here. running in 5th position. He's there for the moment, and he's got some pressure from Geoffrey Fournier. But Dennis Jordan is defending valiantly at the moment from Fournier. This is where the main battle is going on. Jordan is trying to get off the throttle better than Fournier. Fournier swarming all over the back of him. Milan is getting closer for company. And what about Polotczek? Polotczek could get in that battle as well. Jordan defends to the inside line. And he keeps the position through 11 and 12. A little bit of lag, but once it's brought back, we can see that the battle is still there as Polotczek is now starting to have a think about Borja Milan. Jordan defends, and that's all gone relatively well. Yellow flags on the circuit for a time, so I wonder if we've had another retirement. We'll double check that as they come through. Another yellow flag around the circuit, so Edgar Ruiz has obviously rejoined the circuit, having damaged his car. It's Javier Moyano again. I'm afraid Javier Moyano's had another incident out on the circuit, and that has meant he has brought it into the pits to retire. So back to the front of the field now. There's Jason Muscat, Stefan Rualt in 2nd from Antonio Gralanovic. I was going to talk about Dennis Jordan. Dennis Jordan, of course, a racer in Supercup in 2015. And he started his Supercup season in 2015, of course. His highest finish of the season was a 5th place in 2015 at Monza. But Jason Muscat is hanging on to this one in what could turn out to be his first victory for a 6-year spell. Certainly a first victory in the Super Cup. He hasn't won, as we said, since 2011, and he will want to get that victory on the board. Big style. And he is running such a good race at the moment. It's all coming good for him, if he can just hold this all together. Now, Dennis Jordan was a top 10 finisher last year. He had a best result last year of 2nd at Monaco in the sprint race. Jason Muscat's best finish of last year was also a 2nd, but that was twice in Japan and then in the season penultimate round in Mexico. So let's see how Muscat hangs on to the pressure. Stefan Rualt is still right there as we go into the final 6 laps of this sprint race. It could well finish as a stalemate with these 8 cars all in the train, all in the line. There is Dino Paolini. He's dropping back a little way from the leading 3. Right, apologies for the lag. It was a little bit tough that time. We're going to try and bring it back if we can. This is back on board with Dino Paolini. He runs there in formation behind Muscat, Rualt and Gralanovic. Unfortunately, the lag is causing some difficulties. We will try and get the positions back to the best we can. But Muscat is the race leader. Rualt in 2nd from Gralanovic, Paolini, Jordan, Fournier. Polotczek is now in front of Borja Milan. Didn't see where he made the move, but he is now up into 7th position. So that's a positive move for Polotczek, sorry. He'll gain more points with that. Cars come back onto the circuit. So we're getting closer to the end of this battle, and Tobias Polotczek really needing to get on with this now, but he needs to pass Geoffrey Fournier if he wants to break into the top 6, and that is not going to be easy, even for someone of the skill of Tobias Polotczek. He is going to really struggle to get on terms with Fournier. So let's watch as they come through once again, our race leaders. Muscat, Rualt, Gralanovic, Paolini, Jordan, Fournier, Polotczek and Milan. Batalla is 9th. Vodka Hoekstra is in 10th position ahead of Duve Tapper, James Johnson. Sandip Choda now in front of Rob Mason and Gerard Batalla from Strand, Canapino, Pestov, Willis and Ruiz. Now, Mark Fuller has dropped to 21st position in front of Jordan Weeks, who has retired from the race now, along with Moyano, that we already know about. Foster has also done likewise, along with Fernandez and TJ Halsema. Let's go on board with Tobias Polotczek. That is Geoffrey Fournier up the road. So we're trying to get on terms, but Polotczek is not actually gaining as much ground as he would like to at the moment. So Muscat leads, Rualt second, Rolanovic third, Paolini, Jordan, Fournier, Polotzek, Milan, Batalla, Hoekstra, Tapper, Johnson. Oh, that's a bit of a moment there for Polotzek, and that allows Milan to go through. So Polotzek, having done all that hard work to get past Borja Milan, he loses the place and drops back into 8th position. That is a big moment in this race, and he will be really upset and frustrated about that one. So that is a big moment. Let's work our way back to the front of this field. Jason Muscat, 4 to go. 4 laps until he can become the winner here in Australia of his first sprint race in the Supercup since 2011, if he can hang on. 6-car train, 8-car train. It was at one point, but Milan and Polotzek have dropped back off the tail of it a little bit. So now it's up to Milan and Polotzek to get back on the tail. But I have to say, I am so impressed with the composure and resolve of Jason Muscat. In a difficult situation, he is able to run at the front of this pack and soak up all of the tension and the pressure in front of Stefan Rualt and Antonio Rolanovic. But then Jason Muscat is no rookie. He is well versed in the world of Supercup. He's done this for several years. And in terms of his ability, he's incredibly quick to learn. And he's done a cracking job at this level. But Jason Muscat obviously was 7th in last year's standings and did a pretty much full campaign. He only missed the German and Italian rounds of last year's championship season. So he's hoping to be there for the entirety of. So let's see how it all shapes up for the end of the final 3 laps for Jason Muscat. He's actually pulled out a bit of a gap between himself and Stefan Rualt, which is good news for him. He just needs to keep it together. 3 more times around, and he will be a first-time winner in 2017. Having seen Tobias Polotzek take the victory in race 1. Tobias Polotzek's first victory, I believe, in GPVWC. And certainly his first victory over the course of Supercup. He was a partial campaign last year, but he spent more time out of the race than he did finishing races, although he did finish off in Mexico with a 5th and a 6th. He finally seemed to gain his stride, did Tobias Polotzek. But that didn't stop his charge in race 1. He really seemed to gain a good bit of speed from that. Here's Antonio Rolanovic. Yellow flags around the circuit. Let's see if we can pick up what happened. No, we won't, because it's only a brief one. So I don't think anybody will have come too far a cropper on that one. Well, we know the retirements. We've already listed them, but they are just coming across the top of your screens now, starting from Jordan Weeks down towards Fernandez. But Muscat is still running out in front. Rualt in second, and here is Antonio Rolanovic in 3rd position. Looked like he could attack Stefan Rualt at one point, but he's had to just hang back in 3rd position. Of course, a lot of these last 2 and a bit laps is going to come down to tyre life. And Antonio Rolanovic there locking up into turn 15. That's not going to ease the tyres. So he's looking like he's just going to have to settle potentially for 3rd position in front of Dino Paolini. But as we go into the penultimate lap, Stefan Rualt is getting a little bit closer to Jason Muscat. It's almost as if he's held back a little bit. He's held back a little bit over the last couple of laps, and now he's going to reel in Jason Muscat. If I'm Stefan Rualt, I need to start this next lap right on the tail of Muscat. I need to be swarming all over the back wing, and he is now starting to get on with this. Jason Muscat is going to need to be running scared by the end of this lap as far as Stefan Rualt is concerned. So they are going to try and make this race count. It's going to be tough. It's going to be very tense indeed. But can the Deltec Racing Team driver, Stefan Rualt of Holland, make his bid to get past the Maltese driver, Jason Muscat? Zellerick Racing would love to make their first weekend in the championship a victorious one. They've really started strong. They'll want to keep this up. But is this going to be a victorious flourish? We'll find out in a lap and a half or so. Stefan Rualt is already right on the back of Jason Muscat. He has to hold back in the braking zone. But they've dropped Rolanovic, so these two are going to battle for the victory. But if Antonio Rolanovic stays hungry, if these two tangle, he might just pick up a victory. We've got one lap to go here at Albert Park as they come out of the final turn and over the line. It's now or never for Stefan Rualt. The Dutchman is going to be really on it as Dino Paolini has a little bit of a hover on the back rear wing of Antonio Gralanovic. So into turn one, Rualt does not want to come at this too aggressively. He needs to time it right. We ride on board with Stefan Rualt as he has a look at Jason Muscat down to the braking zone for turn three. Careful, Stefan. Don't push this too hard. Jason Muscat will know he's there. He won't be looking behind him. He's got to focus on what's going on up the road. But Muscat has a gap and it's comfortable enough. It's half a second, yes. But he does have enough in his pocket. He just needs to focus on his race. He can't afford to focus on anybody else's. So it's Muscat, Rualt, Gralanovic, Paolini, Jordan, Fournier, Milan and Polotzek. And that is the way it looks like it could stay at this rate. Nobody's making a big bid. But Stefan Rualt is right on the back of Muscat. We need to stay with this because Rualt could make a very good move into turn 13. That's going to be his best shot, really. He stays with Muscat through 11, through 12. He's right there. He's got a good exit. He's not going to be close enough unless he banzais into 13. And I think Jason Muscat knows it. Into turn 13 for the last time. And it looks to me as though Jason Muscat is going to have this one in the bag. Rualt is right with him. But Muscat needs to stay strong. Into the left-hander for the last time. Rualt is right there with him. Muscat needs to get this final corner sorted. Up through the gears. Rualt is right with him, but Muscat is going to push it right the way to the death. It's going to be a victory for Jason Muscat in the Super Cup for the first time in 6 seasons. Jason Muscat wins it from Rualt, Gralanovic, Paolini, Jordan, Fournier, Milan and Polotzek. They remain in the order they were for the majority of. Hoekstra is 9th. Edward Batalla is 10th from Duvet Tapper, James Johnson, Sandip Choda, Gerard Batalla and Rob Mason. Rounding out the top 15. In behind them, the last men home were Strand, Canapino, Pestov, Ruiz, Willis and Fuller, with non-finishes from Weeks, Moyano, Foster, Halsema and Fernandez. And how about that? Jason Muscat takes his first win in Super Cup since 2011. From pole position, he held fast and kept very much in command throughout. Wow, an absolutely sensational finish to his first race of the season then, as Jason Muscat remains in the lead he kept from the start. And I have to say, it's been a great start to the season for Super Cup. Perhaps not as chaotic as Formula Challenge yesterday, certainly in the second race, but a smooth beginning for several drivers. Antonio Gralanovic can actually be quite proud of third position considering how race 1 went for him. A podium finish is very, very justified. Dennis Jordan, well, a pair of top 6s. Same for Jeffrey Fournier. Borja Milan and Tobias Polotzek probably wanted more from that race than they got. But that means, of course, that with the order so staggered, and it's almost an exact reversal of the grid in terms of finishing position as well. So the championship points are going to be very close indeed. But it's Jason Muscat who takes the victory in magnificent fashion. And there he is with his teammate, Duvet Tapper. A victorious first weekend in the championship for the boys from Portishead in England. The Zederick Racing team will be delighted with this one. What a great result. What a great start to the season here in Australia. But it is a victory for Jason Muscat, and he's got every reason to be proud of himself. He's worked so hard in this race, and he's made this victory his own. Well, an absolutely fantastic start to the season then in the GPVWC, the first race of the season. And as the drivers make their way back to the pits, we will hopefully be able to get a word with a few of the drivers as they begin their debrief. Fantastic race then in the Super Cup.